All right, we're diving into a really fascinating, pretty complex theological argument today. It all pivots around this one kind of wild idea of a figure called the flawless beast. It's a concept that tries to connect two things that seem like total opposites: ultimate love and absolute justice. So let's break down how that's supposed to work.
Here's the roadmap for how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at a single symbol, the altar, and its two very different meanings. Then we'll get into the big players in this cosmic drama, figure out what's really at stake, and pinpoint the core accusation that kicked this whole thing off. After that, we'll see the divine answer and how it all comes to a head at the cross.
Okay, so let's jump right in with a central image from our source text, the altar. Now, you probably think of it as a place of sacrifice, right? But the argument here is that it's actually pulling double duty, representing two completely opposite ideas at the very same time.
And here's where you really see that split personality. On one hand, the altar is this symbol of a beautiful, fragrant offering. It represents the Son's loving self-sacrifice. But on the other hand, it's a place of fire, and that fire represents the absolute final judgment and destruction of evil.
So this one symbol basically holds the entire conflict in a nutshell: supreme love and absolute justice, all wrapped up together. And it's this very tension that really drives the whole cosmic story we're exploring.
Okay, so we've got this tension set up. Now let's actually define who the key players are in this whole thing.
So when the source material talks about the beast, what are we actually talking about? It's definitely not about, lions and tigers. It's a very specific theological term for a certain way of being, one that's in direct opposition to God's own nature.
The idea here is that a beast is any created being that throws out the law of love and just operates on pure instinct, power, and self-will. This is the very definition of Satan's rebellion against God.
So this really boils it down to a fundamental choice, right? The way of the beast is to live by instinct and power. The way of God's image is to live out of love and free-willing obedience. And the source is crystal clear. One path leads to judgment, the other leads to life.
All right, we know who's playing. Now let's talk about what's actually on the line. And this isn't just about life and death as we typically think of it. The source makes a really important distinction between two very different types of death.
And just to be super clear, we're not talking about physical death here. The second death is presented as something else entirely, something way more final. It's described as a complete spiritual annihilation, a total and permanent separation from God.
And this is the heart of the whole thing. It's like a cosmic trade-off. The Son goes through the first death, the physical one, in order to save believers from that final, second death. He takes on one to defeat the other.
So, how did this whole mess even start? Well, the source argues it all goes back to one single powerful lie, a direct challenge to the very character and justice of God. Here it is. This is the big accusation at the center of it all. Essentially, Satan's argument is that the whole system is rigged. He claims that God's law of love is literally impossible for created beings to follow, which would make God an unjust judge for punishing them.
And you can see how that poses a huge problem, right? This accusation creates a real cosmic dilemma. For God's judgment to be considered truly righteous and fair, this claim has to be proven definitively to be a lie.
And that leads us directly to the divine answer, God's response to this massive, universe-spanning challenge.
I mean, really think about it. How do you prove a rule isn't impossible? There's really only one way. Someone has to actually follow it. Perfectly. And they have to do it under the absolute worst, most difficult conditions imaginable.
This is the divine countermove, and it's brilliant. The Son, who is divine by nature, willingly takes on the form of a beast by becoming human. He enters a body made of flawed earth, subject to all the same pressures, temptations, and weaknesses as anyone else. And this is the genius of the solution, according to the text. By living a perfect, sinless life of love and obedience inside a flawed human body, the Son becomes what the source calls the flawless beast. He is the living, breathing proof that shatters Satan's lie. He demonstrates once and for all that God's law is possible to follow. All right, so all of these different ideas, the altar's two meanings, the nature of the beast, the impossible law, and that foundational lie, they're all about to crash together at one single point in history: the cross.
And the argument here is that the cross wasn't just a sacrifice. It was a kind of cosmic intersection, where perfect love and absolute justice finally met face to face, and both were satisfied.
So think about what this one event accomplishes. It blows Satan's lie out of the water, proving God's law can be followed. That establishes the legal grounds for a just judgment. But at the exact same time, it creates a path to salvation through that perfect sacrifice, all while being the most incredible display of God's love. It's a verdict and a pardon all in one.
Which brings us right back to where we started, doesn't it? Back to the altar, which is both the sweet, fragrant offering and a consuming fire. And it leaves us with this huge, profound question. How can a single event, a single symbol, possibly hold both the ultimate hope for our salvation and, at the very same time, the final confirmation of judgment?